Find yourself a booth, order up a cold one. This is the Spring Bar.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Spring Bar. Glad to have you here. I am Florida Mike. We've got chocolate ice cream bar eating Joe.
That's real.
Oh goodness, Joe, how you doing?
I'm good.
I see that.
I'm really good.
Oh God, is that what is that, a Crunch bar?
Something like that. You got almonds.
A Klondike bar? What did you do for that Klondike bar?
I'm not gonna say.
Unspeakable and deplorable
Not
acts.
not fit for
A
children's
family show.
consumption. But this is fit for consumption.
Oh goodness. What's new? What's new, Joe?
Um, we're down to 5 cats. We got rid of
From
3.
oh,
7.
we're
No,
we're
4. Because I can't do math. We're down to 4 cats because we got rid of 3. We had 7, so we have 4 cats now.
where did they go?
Fried kitten on the bone. I don't.
The local Chinese place?
They went away. They went. They went away.
Don't,
Some
don't ask.
somebody
Don't ask, don't
some
tell.
somebody took them and to remove all their gonads, and they're gone. So
Oh.
I don't think they're coming back. I hope they're not coming back.
Well, you're trending in the right direction. That's good. That's
Uh-huh.
good. Yeah.
Feeling feeling good. Feeling good.
I've been enjoying your feline posts lately though.
They're really cute.
They-
They're
you
really
know
cute
what?
cats.
I'm not a cat person. I will be the first one to admit it. However, kittens are cute.
Kittens are cute.
They're fun, they're cuddly, they're adorable. I'll give you that.
And
But
then
when
they
they grow
shove over
up,
your floor.
yeah, they become little ninja assholes.
You become a little ninja. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we got one that's massively underweight, that little gray one. The gray one and the orange one are the same age. They're the same litter. And the gray one is half of the weight of the orange one. So we may be hanging on to the gray one for a while because they can't be adopted or they can't be fixed until they're 2 pounds, and they can't be adopted until they're fixed. So it's going to be a bit. That cat's probably going to hang around for a little while. But luckily, the neighbor downstairs likes that cat, so I think we're okay. It can move on down the road.
The goings on of your kitten saga.
Kitten saga. Yep.
Yeah.
What about you? What's up?
Um, Not a whole lot. Same old, same old. It's just been another week. Actually, now that I think of it, when this episode comes out, it'll be my birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Yeah, happy
Thank you.
future birthday.
Holy shit, who is that?
What?
What's the voice from the great beyond? What the hell?
Surprise,
Oh, dude.
everyone.
Holy cow. Who is
Where are
this?
you at, man?
Introduce yourself.
Hey, yeah, so I'm a new member of the show. I just figured I hacked my way in.
I need to put a passcode on this Zoom meeting.
Yeah, you probably should. Yeah.
What's up, dude? How you been?
Oh, not much. I just got back from working on the house and had to buy some more shit so that I can work on the other house I'm leaving.
The beauties
Fun
of a
times.
home ownership.
Yep.
Yeah.
Welcome to adulthood.
Yeah. Oh,
Oh, goodness.
but yeah, sorry. I know I've been MIA for a hot minute. Got a lot going on, and figured the best way to do that was to just drop off the face of the earth.
Life happens. You know where we are. So, to the more important point, though,
Hmm.
new watches.
Oh, I've got new stuff.
Mike's got new stuff. Casey, you got new stuff.
No, I do not.
You got house stuff.
He's got house
I do.
problems. Yeah.
Mm.
He ain't got time for new stuff.
No
I
new
No
do.
time
stuff.
for that. All right, Joe, what
Well,
do you got that's new?
me.
You go first.
All right, I go first because I know what you got.
Yeah.
I picked up this quartz
Ooh, that's
Bulova
cool.
666. It's nice. Yeah. It's a real simple. I'm not sold on the hands. So it's like a Mercedes handset that's luminous and they glow and it's that real basic green.
Well, what else
But
do you need?
but it doesn't match the dial. Like the dial's got kind of a creamy and the dial doesn't glow anymore. So I'm not certain that it isn't a replacement
You know
handset.
what?
Second
That's
hand is
very
also
much
a different color.
that's very much like the Caravelle Clipper. Because
It
if
is.
you look a lot of the pictures, the dial is very creamy. The hands always age differently.
Yeah, but here's but the seconds hand matches the dial.
Nothing.
No, matches the dial.
Oh,
And so the minute and hours do not. So
well, it is what it is.
I'm sketchy on it, but you know what? It works. It's a real clean, real basic dial. It's a quartz movement. It ticks along, but it's a good size. It's like a 38 with a Hey, look at that, a unidirectional bezel.
Look at that.
Look at that.
Imagine that.
Look at that.
Your super aggressive noise cancellation doesn't allow us to hear that unidirectional
Oh
bezel.
man, it's a click and a half though.
I'm going to play the part of the bezel.
Yeah, it's even chunkier than that, man.
Is it a 60 click? Do you not know?
Give me
The look on Joe's face if you're not viewing this.
yeah, 60 click.
60 click. Okay.
It's stiff, man. It's a really good. Let me see if I can hang on. It might be worth the price of admission here. let me
Okay, take off the noise
Ready?
restriction. Yeah, I hear it now.
Yeah.
That's pretty rough.
Yeah, it's stiff. It's pretty darn stiff.
Huh.
Anyway, that's what I got. Now, for a future episode, I do have something going into eBay authentication that will be a large reveal when and if it shows. Which, if everything goes
when and if, well, I sure hope it shows. So that would suggest...
I hope it shows too, but it's gonna be a question of if the authentication goes for it. So we'll have to see.
Oh, it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Yeah,
but that would suggest that you spent enough money.
We'll see
on something that warrants free authentication service.
True. This is true.
I know what it is.
You do.
I'm very happy for you.
You should.
Legitimately, seriously, I am actually very excited for you about this. I won't give away a whole lot because if I say more, that people might understand what it is. But super excited for you. Very excited for you. Yeah.
To be revealed soon.
To be revealed. What you drinking? It's clear.
Bourbon-ish,
yellowish.
Bourbon, soda, rocks, bourbon.
All right.
Technically,
Casey, you're out and about. I hope you're not drinking anything.
No, I really wish I was. I'm looking at drywall right now, and I hate drywall.
Are you watching the paint dry on the drywall? Is that what's going on?
No, I'm looking at all the freaking stuff we hung over the last 4 years here, and now I got to go make that disappear. So, but no, I mean, maybe I'll run out and get a beer later tonight. But right now, I'm in front of a wall with a putty knife.
Right now, he wishes he was drinking.
Multitasking, right?
We'll drink for you. How's that?
Fair.
Okay. Sounds good. I think this drywall screws are about to get bashed into the drywall. I'll just work around it.
So make sure you turn your advanced noise cancellation on for that portion of the show.
I call it mute, right?
That'll work too.
What do you got, Mike?
So we'll start with, how about this? Actually, I kind of had to buy this.
That's the Sears, right?
This is the Tradition Jetstar for all intents and purposes, right? Because that's basically what this is. It is the exact same thing as the Butterscotch Jetstar. Same case, same hands, same dial, same date disc, same everything. Same loom plots, same everything. Just says Tradition on the dial.
Man, that's a good question, isn't it?
What's funny is I had sent you pictures of this watch previously and said, "Hey, look at this! Isn't this funny? That would be kind of cool to have." Um, and just kind of left it at that. Loosely tried to look for one. Figured if I came across it, I'd buy it. Somebody had sent me, um, actually, past guest Tommy, had sent
Oh,
me the listing. Or actually, he sent me a Instagram story. The guy that was selling it said, "Oh, I finally replaced a crystal. It's going to be up on auction. DM me for the link for the auction listing." Okay, fine. So I messaged the guy. I said, "Hey, if anybody's got to buy it, I got to buy it. Let me have the listing." He started it. It was an auction bid of $50, or buy it now for I think 149. Okay,
really?
fine. Well, yeah, yeah. I'm like, I'll try my luck. I'll make a bid, $50. I think I made like a $55 bid or something. It was one of
Right.
those. If I win it, I win it. If I don't, I don't. Save myself $55. It's not going to be the end of the world. Nobody else bid on this thing. Got it
Nobody else knew
for
what it was.
probably not. So got it for $50. So now I have the matching tradition with the Jetstar all in the family. Cousins reunited once again.
The Xerox copy.
Basically, I mean, you want to talk copy and paste, this is it.
It's funny, dude. That's really good though.
But it's cool. Yeah, it's
I'm
fun
glad
to
you, I'm
have.
actually I'm really glad you got that though. I think that's
I
cool.
am too. I mean, if it was going to come anywhere, I feel like it needed to come here to be with the other ones. So it'll be one that stays for sure. Next,
You've been busy.
Joe,
You've been busy.
I have been busy. Well, I sold some stuff, so I freed up some money. My watch money stays with watches, and that's my thing is I've had stuff that's just getting stale in the collection. I had the spare Jet Stars, and I've sold those off, and some other things are for sale. I'm just trying to get a few of those moved out to bring some new stuff in to be able to enjoy. Um, One of which is, my obsession with Zodiacs and their
You know
bright usage of colors. I bought a not quite a vintage. It's probably what, 10, 11, 12 years old.
what color would we call that? Is that like a lime? Is that a sherbet? It's not pistachio.
So I'm calling it the lime. This is the Zodiac Sea Dragon chronograph in the lime colorway. So it's very much, it's not a bright in your face. It's not a muted. It's somewhere in between, but a great lime and white colorway.
Kind of a key lime almost.
So
Like, you
Zodiac
know
doesn't
what?
have an official name for that?
Sea
Was
dragon.
that?
Well, the
Yes.
colorway. They didn't name the
Oh,
colorway?
no, they don't have it like they do now. Like they call them like the watermelon and the what's the sea foam and the orange sherbet,
Creamsicle.
the creamsicle. Yeah. This was kind of pre that era. Um, but this was several years, a handful of years after the fossil takeover.
Yeah.
And I feel like after the fossil takeover is when they started doing more bright colors and exciting colors and things like that.
So do you think that was a legacy design that Fossil was obligated to release? Or do you think that was like one of their first Fossil designs?
I
I'm
feel
curious as to
like
where that fits.
I don't feel like this is a legacy design. I feel like it wasn't one of the first fossil releases. This was a few years into their ownership where perhaps they were trying to venture out into something a little different, maybe. I'm not entirely sure where it kind of fits in. There's the chronograph like this, they have a three-hander version like this, which was also named the Sea Dragon, and then it later morphed into what do they call it now? They have a modern version of it, and it's the Grand Hydra.
Of course it is.
Yeah. So larger than I thought it would be. This is like
Hey, I'm
42
pretty
and a
sure
half
that's the
millimeters.
name of one of the villains that Captain America fights, right? Grand Hydra.
Hydra?
The Grand
Yeah.
Hydra. It's probably green too.
Yeah. But I've wanted a Zodiac for so long. I've wanted a bright Zodiac. There's a lot of different colors to choose from. This one just kind of spoke to me. I've wanted a green watch for a while, so it worked out really, really well. Last but not least, from the gentleman that I sold several Jetstars to, how about this? This is a Helson Caribbean 1000.
Okay, so talk that one through because it's a Helson.
So
It's not a Jenny.
it's not a Jenny. Here's the thing. I don't know what to call this. Is it a copy? Is it an homage? Or is it this brand's take on the Caribbean 1000? And the reason why I say that, Jenny was the first to come out with the 1,000-meter watch. They had a very specific design, very specific dive table bezel, right?
But they also didn't they produce for other companies as well? Because it
Well,
wasn't just for them. They were
there
there's
were a
different
lot of
names.
other companies that had a Caribbean 1000. Philip Watch had one. Um, gosh, who else was there? I'm drawing a blank now. Um, there was probably 5 or 6 different companies that had a Caribbean 1000. So were they all copying Jenny, or did they all just have a Caribbean 1000 version of their own watch? It's hard to say.
Well, we know that
Along,
Jenny was making watches. It was sort of like that tradition that you've got. You know,
Mhm.
it's the same manufacturer, and it's just whose name got thrown on the dial for whatever reasons. So that was a part of it.
Well,
But whether or not it's a
yes
straight
and
copy
no.
versus
Because a lot of the other watches were called Caribbean 1000s. They have a dive table style bezel, but the cases were very differently shaped. They didn't all have the same style case.
right.
So it's hard to say. So is Helson, is it a tribute watch? Is it an homage watch? Is it a copy? Or is it just another company that has done a Caribbean 1000 variation? It's hard to say.
That's a modern watch though, right? It's not
This is modern. This is
vintage.
brand new. In fact,
Right.
the guy that I bought it from bought it, wore it one time, wasn't super impressed with the way that it fit his wrist. I love it. I think it's fantastic. It fits me very well. Um,
How does that compare to your Dan Henry?
doesn't even compare. This is
Okay.
way heavier, way thicker. This is 40 millimeters. It's got a fantastic beads of rice bracelet, which has an actual where's it at? Diver's extension clasp on it, which I found out. This came with a real nice FKM Tropic. Came with all the warranty cards, the information, and everything, the little tools that go with it. Screw down crown. I mean, 1,000 meters. The Dan Henry is not near that. The Dan
Right.
Henry is a very cool watch in its own way. More skin divery. This is more deep dive, and the makeup and the construction of it shows for sure. You can't really, other than the colors, can't compare the two.
Okay.
So that's what I got. That's new right now.
What's in the glass, man?
Ah, so I started drinking Victory Juicy Monkey, which is a hazy IPA, very orangey, mangoey, tropical-y, fruity flavored kind of IPA, 9.5%, right?
Okay.
For the content of our topic, I feel like I need to be a little sharper. So I've switched to this is 4.2, so roughly half. This is a Shiner Shandy.
Okay.
So summer season when the shandies come out, these are my favorites. The grapefruit shandies, the lemon shandies. I love these. They're
I'm
real
a
light.
fan of Shiner, but I'm not a fan of the Shandy.
No,
No.
I like
Shiner
it.
though.
They're
Shiner,
they're
I'm
good.
I'm good with Shiner.
Yeah. Oh,
No, I
halfway
can,
agree.
I can work with a shandy, especially on like a hot day. You just want to chill out.
It's real light, real refreshing, easy to drink. You can't go wrong with them. I love the shandies.
I got real light, fresh. Come on.
Yeah,
Come on,
well,
man.
to each
It's
their
like
own.
if I crush the ice, it's almost like a slush.
Almost. Yeah. There you go.
Almost. All right. So here we are. Mike has decided, based upon his recent acquisitions, that we will be discussing dive bezels. Bezels
Dive
in general,
bezels.
but dive bezels kind of specifically because the Helson has the Jenny-ish
It
dive
has,
bezel.
yeah, the decompression dive table in the bezel.
Bezel,
Yeah.
which if you haven't seen one, it's what? It's like 3 tracks.
I have, and I think I sent it to you, the patent for the
Yeah.
Jenny decompression dive bezel and the accompanying instruction book that goes along with how to read it. So I'm going to put those on the screen, and I'm going to put them up for a little bit of time so that you can see it, take it in, read it, really get a good look at how this operates, because it's super friggin' confusing.
A few
So
minutes later.
yeah,
All right.
to get started, and I feel like we're going to dispense some actual educational information here,
All right.
guys, because dive watches are very popular in the watch community. I feel like majority of the time they never get used for their intended purpose. We're timing what we're cooking, we're timing our barbecues, we're timing our suntans, we're timing everything other than a dive,
It's a fidget spinner.
basically. So to get started, we're gonna talk real quick about deep diving and why dive tables and decompression tables are important.
Well, let's if we're going to start, let's start with a little bit of history, because when you start looking at dive watches specifically designed for diving, the dive bezel doesn't show up until it's a weird sort of thing, right? Because there's that Rolex, whatever the heck it is, the zero whatever,
What was it? The
yeah,
zero, what was that
whatever the
called?
name of that was,
Zero
zero
graph?
graph. Yeah,
Oh,
Yeah.
you're talking about the turnograph, right?
not the Turnograph.
Oh,
It's before the Turnograph. This one's from the
yeah.
30s, and
Oh,
it's
wow.
it's a small watch, and it has what is considered to be the first external bezel. But Omega did that, their dive watch, that square one that fit inside the case, right? And there was no bezel on that. And Panerai, also as a specifically military use dive watch, also didn't have a bezel whatsoever. So the bezel itself really becomes common. Rolex has got it. They've got it on the Turnograph, which is the precursor to the Submariner. Submariner is what, 53 ish, and then Blancpain is a little bit, in and around the same time,
Shortly thereafter, yeah.
right? So the bezel itself really doesn't become popular until around that time. So that's kind of, we're looking from a historical take. Let's start there.
Okay. So most sport diving is done in a zero decompression sort of way. In
Okay,
that,
talk that through though.
in that you are in the water at a certain depth for a period of time that does not require you to make any sort of decompression stops during your ascent back up to the surface.
So we're
Okay.
talking about recreational diving, for lack of a better term. Skin
Yeah.
diving, recreational diving. For the
Well,
most
skin
part.
diving, snorkeling, not so much, but scuba diving to certain depths for a certain time that does not require you to have to decompress on your way back up.
Okay.
Okay. When you get into longer dive sessions or deeper depths,
Technical diving.
mhm, you get into, would you call it saturation diving at that
No,
point?
saturation will be different, because that's
That's
when you're
different.
pushing all of the nitrogen out, and that requires a longer decompression. That's normally when you're going to be staying at depth.
Yeah. But what happens is the inert gases start to build within your body, mostly the nitrogen gases, to the point which if you were to ascend without decompressing, the gases build up, release into your lungs, they release into your joints, they release into your tissues and your muscles, and it causes severe medical complications,
Right.
breathing complications, joint pains, paralysis, um, and even further. So when you dive for extended period of times or for deep depths, it's very important that you follow your dive tables and dive schedules.
Which is all based upon you individually, what your weight is, what you were breathing, how far you, blah, 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 blah,
Oh,
blah. Yeah.
it is so complicated.
Right.
When I was researching this, I came across so many different charts. Some charts are outdated. It's tables and times and depth ratings that they don't use anymore. They've gone to different scales, and it makes zero sense to somebody who's never done a deep dive ever before. Very fascinating. I'd love to learn more about it, but it's super involved.
Yeah. And
But
that's a part of like, so getting scuba certification involves being able to go through that kind of training so that you understand how long you need to decompress based upon how long you've been in, blah, blah, blah. And that's
mhm,
part of the scuba certification, which is why you can't just go rent scuba gear and hop in the water.
yeah, basically.
All right.
Essentially, if you did that and you went past the zero decompression times and came back up, your lungs would explode, and that's literally what would happen. The nitrogen would build up, expand, and you would explode, which would be great. Love to see that happen.
So, it's a thing.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
there's
So how's this apply to watches?
how many different bezels did we come up with? There was five different types of dive bezels. Okay. The first and the most common and the most simplest is your elapsed time bezel. And that's the one that's got the marker at 12 o'clock, and they're generally marked, with 5, 10, 15 minutes. Some or the earlier models are just the marker at the 12, the 15, the 30, the 45. They're marked in an elapsed time way of varying degrees.
So if you think of if you, like the elapsed time bezel, your basic one is going to be the same thing you would see on any sub. That's
Yes.
your right. And it'll have that 15-minute track, which has been marked by each minute, and
Hmm.
then every five after that. And usually it's a 60-minute outer track rather than the hours. And
Yeah.
the other one would be like the Blancpain or the Bull of a Mill ships, which is just the ordinals 12, 3, 6, 9.
Yeah. The marker,
But
the 15, 30, the
15, 30,
45.
45.
Yeah. And basically what you do is you're setting when you're starting your dive, and it just tells you how long you've been underwater, right? So
Right.
that's the first one. Second one is, well, there's a subsection of that.
Yes.
Your super compressor, which is the same basic elapsed time bezel, but just under the crystal, like what Joel's holding up with the Accutron Deep Sea. That
Which is not a super
is
compressor, by the way,
was not a super compressor.
but the internal bezel.
Yep. The difference is that is operated by a second crown versus being able to manipulate the standard bezel with your hands or a dive glove, so on and so forth.
Yes.
Some would say that is arguably more difficult to manipulate with dive gloves. Some would say it's better because it eliminates the ability of knocking the bezel, right?
It could be, but you know what? This sucker turns real easy. Just saying. Like I,
Yeah.
I don't knock it and it adjusts. So it's also vintage. That counts for something.
So then we come to along the same lines of those, but in a countdown fashion. So rather than 5, 10, 15, 20, it's 55, 50, 45, 40, so on and so forth, all the way till you get back to zero again at the 12 o'clock,
And so usually
which
that's
is
like either it's just the last 20 minutes or the last 15 minutes.
are highlighted in some sort of a
Yeah.
way.
Some kind of, usually a different color.
Yeah. Essentially used for if you know you're going to go down for a dive that is going to last a specific period of time, you can set how long that period of time is, and then it'll count down. And once it gets back to that 12 o'clock marker, you know that you have reached your dive limit. Okay. Then you start moving into a little bit more complicated stuff. The most famous is going to be the Doxa dive bezel, which is known as the no decompression dive scale. This has your typical elapsed time in an inner ring. Okay, so by the minute markers, the 5, 10, 15, 20, so on and so forth. On the outer ring, it is measured in feet. So on mine, 190, 150, 140, 130, 120, 110, so on and so forth, all the way down to 60 feet. Basically, what this is that is the amount of time you can spend with the corresponding amount of feet without having to decompress on your way back up to the surface. So this is a no decompression time scale.
Right. And so you depending on how deep you're going, determines how long you can stay. And the deeper you are, the less time you can stay.
Correct. So for example, at 5 minutes, I'm showing roughly it's right between 150 and 190 feet. So we'll call it 170 feet. You can go down 170 feet for 5 minutes. You don't have to worry about decompressing on your way out. That's a safe, zero decompression depth and time frame.
Right. Hoping you can get down that far in that amount of time also.
In that amount of time, yeah. 120 feet, you got 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, you cross over into that decompression zone. Then you have to start worrying about making your stops, so on and so forth.
Right.
So the Doxa bezel seems confusing, but it's very simple. That's the point, basically the point of no return. You come up, or you have to get into, a much more complicated ascent schedule.
Okay.
Then you come to, like what we were talking, the Jenny 1000, which has the actual decompression table on the bezel. Okay, so this is where I'm going to put up that patent
you can't
the
see
picture
that on
here.
camera. It's got to be. It's complicated.
So it's complicated. How this works is when you start your dive, you set the top marker to where your minute hand is, like in any dive watch. That's how you begin the start of your dive. You go down for a specific amount of time. Okay, so right now on my watch,
you can hear that now. It's clicking now. It wasn't when it was up by the mic. That's ridiculous.
It's a little further away. Right now, my minute hand is at 30. Okay. Let's just say, for all intents and purposes, that I started my dive at 15 minutes past the hour.
Okay.
So right now, I've been down underwater for 15 minutes.
All right. I've adjusted my internal bezel to.
Let's just say that I have gone down to a depth of 100 meters.
Okay.
Okay. On my decompression table here, I can go to 100 meters for 25 minutes with zero decompression.
Okay.
At the 30-minute point, so between 25 and 30 minutes, I have to decompress for 3 minutes. If I stay at that depth for between 30 and 40 minutes, I have to decompress for 15 minutes. Now, when we talk decompression, there's a couple different ways to do that. There's a continuous ascent where you ascend a certain determined amount of feet per minute, where you don't have to make intervaled stops. Then there's a scheduled decompression where you're ascending to certain points and you have to hang out there for a prescribed amount of time before you make your next ascent point, and you sit there for an amount of time and you make your next one, so on and so forth until you get to your surface. The best I understand is the Jenny dive table is that is the amount of time that you have to hang out at 5 meters to allow your body to release the inert gases within your system to adjust to the ambient pressure before you fully reach zero depth. So it's not a scheduled stop. It's not a continuous ascent. It is how long you sit at 5 meters before you
Okay.
can fully rise to the surface. The table that I put on the screen, that's the patent that they got in 1971. That one is different than what the modern decompression bezels are. They follow two different tables. And from what I understand, the earlier ones calculate shallower depths to which they have changed the depths, they have changed the times, they have changed the scales. Some of those depths aren't even observed anymore.
Right.
The newer tables, like mine, starts at what is this, 60 meters.
Yeah. The
But
newer
at
table is like from
60,
1985 and it's still obsolete.
yeah.
Right.
But they observe different timetables and depth tables and things like that. So like at 60 meters, you can stay down for an hour at zero decompression. You can stay for 100 minutes at 14 minutes decompression. If you guys are at home and you're scratching your heads, don't feel bad because I did the exact same thing. It makes zero sense and it is super hard to read because the way that you set this bezel doesn't matter where your minute hand is pointing when you're done with your dive time. It's the elapsed time. Then you have to go and find that time within the bezel, and then you have to go to basically table two to see how long you've been down for. Then you have to go to table three to see what your decompression time is. Super confusing.
By the time I'd done all that, I would have probably run out of air.
That's the
Probably,
other issue because you know how
probably
much time you've got in your air tank. And then that doesn't count the fact that if you're bringing a mix of stuff, this is where it gets to be all messed up. And we're talking about it's an analog solution for a digital world because all of this has been replaced by dive computers.
computers. Yeah,
It's all
basically.
it's all moot. And the dive watch itself has now become sort of a legacy. And maybe you use it as a little bit of a timer and maybe an elapsed time, but and it's a backup, but it's not going to replace the dive computer.
Well,
So
and yeah, but what's funny is even when you go back to the first iteration that we were talking, so just basic elapsed time or your countdown timer, you still have to use that in conjunction with your depth meter, your dive computer, your tables, if you're going to, go beyond the zero decompression rate to figure out. I mean, those bezels are simply there just to let you know how long you've been underwater, but you still have
right,
all the other calculations that you got to go through anyways. If
right.
you're not using a modern dive computer, which maps everything out for you, right?
And you still have to be, conscious enough and pay attention to all of that stuff. So this brings us to some new different things. Go on, Mike.
Nope, you still got one more type of bezel,
Well, what's that?
the Aquastar Deep Star.
Oh, that ugly one. Go.
It's not an ugly one.
Uh,
Beautiful watch.
uh,
That bezel, and let me pull it up here. While I'm looking for it, there is a fantastic article on Houdinki. Um, it's called In-Depth Deciphering Dive Watch Markings. Just Google Houdinki In-Depth Deciphering Dive Watch Markings. Pulls up a fantastic article. It talks about all this kind of stuff. It explains it a little bit better than what I'm trying to do here. If you're into this kind of stuff, it's a good read.
uh-huh.
We get down to the Aquastar Deep Star Dive Chronograph, which has two scales on the bezel. You have your elapsed time, and then it has an outer ring, which looks like some sort of an algorithm, right? 1.1 P equals 55, 42, 34, 30, so on and so forth. Goes all the way down. Then it's normal, and then you've got another set of decimal numbers. It's super confusing. So when you come up from your dive and you go through all the decompression, you still have a residual amount of nitrogen left in your system. Again, if you research this, there are tables that tell you, depending on the amount of residual nitrogen that you have in your system, you have to wait a certain amount of time before you can make a second consecutive dive. That's what this bezel does. Not only does this one set to the minute hand to tell you how long you've been diving, it also sets to the hour hand and it tells you the amount of residual nitrogen that you will have left in your body and the amount of time you have to wait before you can make your next dive. That is what the Aquastar Deep Star bezel does.
Okay. Why?
Why?
Yeah. Why?
Because there's people that want to make more than one dive in one day, I guess.
Right. So that's kind of your thing. So it becomes an interesting point when we're talking about some of these watches because we're blurring the line between the professional and the recreational.
Hmm.
And that's where things get to be very, very interesting because the depth charts and the depth rating bezels were developed by Jacques Cousteau for the most part. And it's just that way they could have a really handy reference. And when you start listening and doing any kind of research into what Cousteau did for underwater exploration and the watches that were involved, but also the equipment, the aqua lungs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's without getting into Sea Lab and all of the saturation diving and all that other sort of stuff. It's pretty impressive. It's an impressive body of work for a guy that has a really good French accent. So
it is impressive. And all these bezels are impressive. And I feel the more complicated you get, the more impressive they look, the more complicated they are. But just the fact that, I mean, you want to talk a tool watch, a dive watch is the epitome of the tool watch in that,
yes,
and especially in something, like the Doxor or like the Jenny like this, that has these tables on your wrist in a slimmed down, complicated, not complicated, but a slimmed down complication type way
and
where
it's
you can
also
take this with you wherever you go, kind of
it's an
thing.
incredibly simple complication too because it's just there's one moving part, and so it doesn't have to do a whole lot. But
Yeah.
then you've also got if we want to have that conversation, but let's talk about like the Mito decompression dial and then the Vulcane dials because that takes it off of the bezel and puts it onto the dial, and then
Puts
you've
it on
got
the dial. Yeah. So what's cool if you want to talk vintage, the Vulcane Cricket Nautical is a very cool watch for several reasons. It's a wrist alarm, so you can set it. It gives you an audible tone of when you've reached your time limit
underwater,
underwater.
right?
And then it has the dial itself will rotate the decompression scale so that way you can read it based upon your
Where, when, and what you are.
exactly, basically, yeah. So that's a very cool design.
Yeah,
And then you have the Mitos, which are basically the same thing, which best as I understand are not movable.
right.
That's
It's
just a
a fixed style,
fixed on
but
the
it
dial.
has your chart.
But it has the chart, very colorful. They just redid those not that long ago, a couple of years ago. They did the
Yeah,
reissues of those Mitos, and so beyond the bezel, there's several iterations of it, but all very cool, very useful tools.
yeah.
None of which I'll ever use,
No,
but it's one of those I like knowing that I have something on my wrist that is capable of reaching those depths and capable of getting me back to the surface safely.
yes, for all of your deep jacuzzi johns.
Yeah, all my snorkel explorations.
Yes, as I'm washing dishes, I know how long I can submerge my wrist.
Now,
Okay,
Joseph,
now
you are going to make the argument
I am.
of some other bezels that
Yes,
are non-traditional dive bezels, but yet how they are actual dive bezel. So please indulge
So,
us.
so when you start talking about some of this stuff, you're finding dive watches that are now having a GMT complication. And the argument can be made that if you're going to be using a saturation type of dive, you're going to be underwater for a long time. And therefore, a GMT
I
becomes
feel
a
like
useful complication because you do not have the sun to manage where you are. And you don't know where it is, and you lose track of time and you lose track of the day. That's why you have GMT watches with a dive rating. Whether or not that's correct, that's not the issue.
So, are you
That's
saying the Explorer 2 is the best watch ever?
it's up. I don't know what its depth rating is.
Actually, I don't know either.
See,
that's
there's kind of
probably
your.
what, the 200-meter watch, right? I would imagine.
It might be. I don't know. I don't have one, but I'm thinking of the Bulova 666 GMT, which is depth rated. So
But
you've got that.
okay,
Now,
but can you even be down that long? If you're
if
down
you're
that long
if you're
underwater,
saturation diving, yes, well you'll have to have some kind of place to go sleep, and that would be, you're looking at a underwater hotel of some sort.
Hey,
But it does happen. Now then also there would
hold
be.
on. I think we need to acknowledge the fact that you just said whether or not that's true is not the point.
It's
That
not the
is
point.
the most Joe line I've ever heard.
I try to keep true to myself.
Okay, continue.
There's also the compass bezel. Okay. And if we're talking about diving, in particular, if we're using it in a military context, the compass bezel is the reason that you've got the watch. The purpose of the watch when you're underwater is for directional timing. I'm going to swim this far at this rate for this amount of time, and then I'm going to turn at this direction at this. Now, typically, you'll have an actual compass rather than using the compass bezel. However, the compass bezel has that application. I don't think that that's used because when you start thinking about the more recent developments in military dive watches, we're talking about the FXDs, the Tudor FXDs, which were developed for Marine Nationale and for U.S. military. They don't have a compass bezel. They've got a traditional elapsed time bezel. But the compass bezel is having that space.
I love you, Joe. So far, we're GMT dive watches, which
Yes.
it doesn't matter whether or not
and,
you're right.
and side note, the Rolex Explorer 2 is rated only at 100 meters.
There you go. Well, but also the
Really?
FXD is only 200 meters because the people that were using it aren't going any deeper. And to me, that, like, you want to talk about the epitome of a tool watch, there you go. It's developed in conjunction with the guys that are going to use the watch. It's like, we don't need 300 meters. 200 meters is just fine. Thank you.
You know what's funny? In doing the research for this, I came across that I don't know what survey it was, but they said that FXD was the singularly best dive watch.
Purpose built, I
Oh,
don't think you can beat that. And talking about a watch that's designed for a real specific use by a real specific skill set, it puts it into the same category as the 50 fathoms, which was developed specifically and had to meet a spec, you know. And that's, that's the beauty of these military dive watches. And so that sort of takes us into this idea, and it's the ISO spec. And so it's ISO 6425. And to meet that spec, that tells you what a dive watch should be.
which is
It's been developed over many years, and what it's asking for is that you can put the depth rating listed in meters. It needs to have a unidirectional bezel that cannot be adjusted easily, so that if you knock it, it's only going to lessen your time rather than expand on your time. To be protected against accidental rotation and have a luminous pip at the 12 o'clock marking so that you know where it's been set at. That needs to be visible for 180 minutes at 35. You know,
like 30 meters, I think, or something like that.
Yeah,
Isn't
and
it?
it's real specific on what it is it needs, and luminous running indicator so that you know that your watch hasn't stopped. And it also designates shock resistance and a couple other things for to meet this spec essentially. And that's it's a cool thing. It's completely superfluous at this point in time, but it's still a cool thing. Say, your watch needs to meet this minimum standard in order to receive this kind of designation. And, I like that. That always appeals to me because it's a level of redundancy that I will never need, but it's nice to know it's there.
At its basic core, a watch that's rated at 200 meters is considered a professional dive watch.
Yes.
Important
because you're past recreational diving at that point in time.
Yeah. Also, you were talking about the loom being visible for 180 minutes at X amount of depth.
Yeah.
That's how the orange dial came to be. That
all of the tests show that orange isn't the best one, really.
Well, let's say that at the time they found orange to be the best to be visible within low light conditions at a depth of 30 meters.
Yeah.
And you're right. And now they've, said, well, there's other colors that do. I think, what isn't it, yellow that does the best now?
Yellow's good, white is better. So,
okay. Yeah.
Who knew? But all right. So now let's talk fixed or not fixed bezels, but mechanism. Right? Because you've got this idea that the bezel cannot move. It has to be fixed in some fashion. And so the unidirectional thing comes into play, the ratchet comes into play. But then you've also got the pull prof, which has its depression thing in order to move it around. You've got Yema, which has their screw down crown, which holds the bezel in place, right on the Supermans and on some of their other stuff. And then you've got the Bulova mill ships it's a press to turn, which is a different kind of locking mechanism.
Which, yeah, you have to press it to turn it, and it spring loaded comes back up, it locks in place, which is the same for the 50 fathoms and the leaps and all that. Same basic idea. And that was the military spec bezel locking system.
Right. Because prior to that, they were kind of just moving around. It was a pressure fit more than anything else.
Yeah. Early ones and even some modern ones too now are bidirectional bezels, and you can't really call that a true dive watch because it's bidirectional.
Well, it doesn't meet the spec.
It doesn't meet the spec, but I think it's important to note, because you mentioned a unidirectional bezel to prevent knocking of it. It's because if you accidentally knock it, you don't want to prolong the amount of time that you're down on your dive, because you're going to inherently run out of air. It shortens it. It's a safety feature. It's a built-in safety feature, basically.
But see, what I find really fascinating is I've got the Bulova super compressor, which has the internal bezel. And then there's also this deep sea, which has the internal bezel, but it is not the unidirectional at all. It moves freely both directions. And I don't think we're into the ISO spec with these watches, but even though they're rated for 666 feet.
Well, okay. Hey, so speaking of ISO, and since we already covered that, essentially these are, antiquated tools that we're not using them anymore. So we can't
not
really,
for that purpose.
It doesn't, yeah, exactly. It doesn't make any sense, because I was just sitting thinking about how we can change the standards. A new company comes out and says, oh, we do this so much better. But are you doing something better in a field that is irrelevant now?
There's a level of it, but I think that they're looking at the watch as a redundancy. If your dive computer goes out, how will you stay safe? What is it you need to do to make sure that happens? And the watch is, if it's a mechanical watch, you've got a level of redundancy there that, for whatever reason, you still might be safe, you still might be okay. And I think that's part of it. And when you talk to many divers, Jason Heaton is real popular when it comes to all of the dive watch aspects, and the gray NATO and all the other stuff that he's involved with. And he's always diving with a watch of some sort. It may not be with the nearest and the dearest and the latest and greatest, but he's got something on. But it's because it's part of the redundancy factor. And if I'm going down to a depth where if I come up too quick, it's going to kill me, I think having a couple extra safeguards in place definitely doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and it's also sort of the idea is, okay, you do need a standard for that. It might be redundant and it might be esoteric and it might be obsolete, but it still exists, and it is not wrong. It's still there. It's still there for a purpose. And the purpose is to make sure you don't die.
And I think you also get that connection of what it was like diving in the old days and the pioneers of the diving and the guys that were involved in developing this sort of technology that became available on your watch. And there's something to be said to have that connection, right? To be able to do it the old way. It's like, all these electric cars these days practically drive themselves and they make it very easy to do so, but you lose out on that visceral experience of driving a manual steering gearbox, stick shift, you lose the connection with the car the same way that you lose connection with the pioneers of diving and the sport. And if you're very passionate about this, I feel like this is a tool that you just want to have, not as a redundancy, but to have that connection with those pioneering divers.
So you're saying bring back drum brakes?
Yes, bring
Absolutely.
back drum brakes and
lap
manual.
Seatbelts.
Absolutely manual. But when you really get down to it, when you start thinking about space exploration, it's the Speedmaster. And you watch the guys that are going up on SpaceX, and what do they most likely have?
X-33s.
Speedmaster.
Yeah.
That it's still there. We're talking like this is a manual wind watch. It's not even automatic. And the things that
Oh
go
no,
along
not
with
even that. What they made a big deal about the one when they first went up on the what was the very first SpaceX manned rocket launch called?
that Dragon capsule.
He was wearing the Speedmaster. It's called the X-33, right? Isn't that what it is?
The new one. But
The
when you look at like
one,
the Blue Origin stuff, they were all wearing speed. It's still the most common watch if you're looking amongst astronauts, because there's that connection to heritage, and that connection to the history and the involvement with the program. So
yeah.
The X-33 is arguably a better watch. It's a more useful watch. It is a more practical watch, and it has none of the romance.
Yeah.
It has no soul, Mike.
Yeah, I'll give you that
soul.
one. I'll give you that.
All right, then.
Yeah.
So the other thing that we can talk about when you're talking about this type of bezel is what they're made of. Because the initial bezels were Bakelite, which is a progenitor to plastic, but those suckers would crack and they would fade. Then they would move to steel, and the steel ones would scratch and also fade, because the more you use the watch, the more and this idea of knocking it and making the bezel move. Well, for most of us, that's not that big of a deal. It's not that big of a problem. But underwater, doing kind of construction or doing welding or doing pipe fitting at depth, you're going to knock the watch. What's become more common now is either sapphire or ceramic.
Yeah.
Sapphire is good and it allows a cover, but the ceramic has now become more popular just because you've got so many different color options. And if we're talking about the Zodiac bezels and the colors and whatnot that goes with that, the options are a little more.
And that's what this is. The Helson has got the sapphire bezel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas the Doxa, and they remain to be still to this day steel bezels with an inlay.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, in terms of popularity, it's a toss up. I would bet between, if you're talking about watch guys, a dive watch or a chronograph. I don't think Fliegers are in the same category, to be absolutely honest.
No.
So, and I think that anybody who's listening to this podcast has got multiple of that somewhere in their collection.
We forgot to mention real quick, and unless you got anything else to add, we can probably end it on this. We've talked super compressors multiple times, made
Yeah.
reference to them. Super compressor basically does just that. The top and bottom compresses, and the deeper you go, the more tighter and firmer of a seal
The
that
tighter
you
it
get
gets.
out of that watch.
Yeah.
That's essentially what a super compressor is.
It's the Edwin Piquet design, and it's got this multiple little locking ridges within the case back. And so sometimes there will be two gaskets, and they'll be at different levels so that you've got multiple redundancies. And just that the further down you go, the tighter it compresses. And the internal rotating bezel is also outside of that sometimes as well. So it keeps the mechanism safe. And you've got the single crown versus the dual crown with the internal bezel versus the external bezel. And then there's also
currently, just real quick, I believe still the only brand to make a true super compressor dive watch is, I'm drawing a blank.
Longines.
Nope.
Ooh. Because
Christopher
Longines
Ward.
got their what?
Christopher Ward.
They've got one, definitely. I think the Longines counts because they have that reissue that they've done, and they changed
Does that have
their case design.
Does that have the compressing ring on the backside though?
I believe so. I believe it does, but I could be wrong. And if I'm wrong, throw it in the comments.
I'll believe you. Trusting you, Joe.
Don't. I'm on. Come on, this is number 2.
But also, you were going to add, and I think I know where you're going to go with this, is what? You brought it up earlier pre-show. The helium escape valve.
I don't want to talk about that.
Why?
You want to talk, because I think the helium escape valve on any watch.
It's important for deep diving, though.
It is important for deep diving, but who uses it? And it's on every Omega. Well, the Seamaster. Come on, I see no need for it on any watch that's going to be a desk diver. If you need a helium escape valve, you need a helium escape valve, and there's already a watch for that, and you don't need anything else.
We just spent the last hour going through all the specifications of dive watches that nobody's ever going to use that's listening to the show. So
if you get a watch, Mike, if you show up with a watch that has a helium escape valve, I am going to mock you. I'm going to get a helium balloon, and I'm going to follow you around. Talk like this for the rest of the time. Oh
my God! I mean, I don't need a Hellcat, but I want one of those too.
Yeah, see? What,
dumbest
Joe,
thing on a domestic watch? Like,
what?
I need one of those. I know I need one. I know where to get one.
Hey, so all right, let's go ahead and say, for argument's sake, that they are dumb.
Okay.
Who has done it the best?
Well, before we even get into that, I'm trying to get Joe to explain what a helium escape valve even does for those who don't even know.
So
it allows helium to escape.
It allows. Okay, it's because this is okay. This is the issue. As they got into saturation diving, and there was this recognition that nitrogen causes a havoc with the human body when you are down at depth, because nitrogen dissolves into the bloodstream, and it's small. It's a smaller molecule than oxygen, which allows it to permeate into the joints. And then as you come up from depth, it expands and then starts to cause damage. And that's what's the bends, and that there's a variety of other problems that go with that. There was a development where they started using heliox, and they replaced the nitrogen in the air in the gas supply with helium. Everybody talks it really funny, and it's a great thing, but it allows for the nitrogen to be out. what they started to find with saturation diving, they did this with Sea Lab and they did this with a couple others, is that the guys that were using Submariners, and they were the Comex subs, the Rolex subs, the crystals were popping off because of the inert gases within the watch, right? It was sealed in and they had a problem. So they ended up with this, they got this helium escape valve to allow them to change the internal pressure and allow the gases to escape so that the crystal wouldn't pop off. But what some other companies found is like, if we just build a better watch, we don't have that problem.
And that was going to be the point that I make. It used to be said that if you had a 1,000-meter watch, you had to have the escape valve in order to achieve that depth rating. However, you no longer have to have that valve.
Right. No longer necessary. And you start looking at like, okay, so the Rolex Deep Sea has got that. The Seamasters have got that. There's a few other brands that do the same thing.
Various others.
But I think, and correct me if I'm wrong.
You're always wrong.
Okay, but correct me anyway. The Deep Sea Challenger, the Rolex, those ugly bubble crystal that may or may not be real, and all like went down.
Oh, you're talking the old one.
Yeah,
the real thick one.
Yeah,
I don't think that one has it.
There's no helium escape valve on that.
Yeah, I don't think that one has it.
I don't think it does either. And that sort of comes to and proves the point that like if you can build a decent watch, you don't have that as a problem. The other thing that you can talk about is if you take the watch and you fill it with oil is typical, mineral oil, and that seems to prevent the compression as well. Then you don't have that problem then, and you also have better legibility at depth.
And when you're done with diving, if you need to top off the mineral oil system in your Rolls Royce, you can break your watch open and use that to pour into the
reservoir. I prefer to use olive oil because that way I can season my pasta.
As long as you pass me the Grey Poupon.
Well, now I'm a fan of Grey Poupon. It's good in cooking. I won't put it on a sandwich. Though.
Yeah, I love Grey Poupon. Stone ground mustard. That's good too.
Yeah. There's a time and place.
So, gentlemen, do we say that probably for the first time in 65 episodes that we've actually dispensed usable knowledge? Perhaps? No. Maybe? No?
No.
Damn it.
It's not you. Come on. Who is watching this, listening to this, who is diving and needed us to tell them about it?
Yeah.
Well, maybe not for the person that already does it, but perhaps the
people that are already doing it have turned this off by now. They're so full of shit.
I'll go with that entirely.
Yeah.
So I'll throw this out to the listeners and viewers because I feel like this was fun. I had fun doing this and learning something as well. What other weird watch complications or makeups or builds would you like us to research and discuss? If there is something weirder than deep dive watches, like what would that be and what would you like to hear?
What if? Okay. Weirder complications than
I suppose you could say we could talk about space watches, right? Because those have to withstand. Those are spec built watches, and they have to withstand certain external elements.
Well, okay.
So maybe somebody wants to hear about space watches and those.
Okay. Except if we're talking about the space watches. And there's a whole list of watches that have been in space, and you've got Speedmasters, you've got.
Joe, don't get ahead of yourself. I'm not getting ahead
of myself because there's a list, and there's a couple different ones, and they find new stuff every once in a while. But it doesn't change the fact that these were all watches that nobody knew what space was like when they went up. And it's like, I just got to wear a watch. And this is the one I wore as a test pilot. So I'll just take it with me. Because remember, NASA didn't start issuing watches until significantly later, like it was Gemini, I think. So the Mercury guys just like, this is what I happen to have. And maybe I'll wear two just to be sure because I want redundancies.
Yeah,
In
but
case
what
the
did the
crystal
Mercury
pops.
guys wear, Joe?
Well, it depends on the Mercury guy.
In the later portion of the Mercury program, there were astronauts.
Yes, Accutron astronauts, but that's because those were
And
being
those,
issued. Those were being issued to
but
test pilots.
because those met certain specs, didn't they?
No, not so much that they met certain specs, but because it was cutting edge technology at the time, and also they could handle the heat in the cockpit.
Well, there you go. That's a spec, isn't it?
It's not, and no, that's not a spec. That was just hit and miss. They're like, hey, this watch doesn't break when I go up and really fast.
Okay. Well, if you
Because
want us to talk,
my suit has to be water cooled so I don't bake.
if you want us to talk moon watches, we can talk moon watches. We can get into that. You can even get into GMTs. There's different types of GMT watches. You have GMT bezels, you have GMT scales, you have standard GMTs, you have traveler GMTs. I mean, we can get into that. What else is there? I mean, there's different kinds of stuff, you know?
Collar, traveler, bezel.
God, you want to know something that would be really difficult to get into? Calculator watches.
Oh, fuck you.
You got your basic calculator watches, you got scientific calculator watches, you got data bank calculator. I mean, that's a whole nother rabbit hole to go down.
You want to talk about slide rule watches? Because none of us know how slide rule works.
No.
So,
oh my gosh, you know what? That's another one. Holy cow. That would be interesting to do.
no, it wouldn't. I don't understand that math.
Yeah, I didn't understand how the hell to use this thing until I looked it up.
Yeah, but that only rotates once. The slide rule watches are no. We can do it. We can do it. I'm starting to drink beforehand, and by the time we get there, I'm going to be sloppy drunk. So
we'll leave it up to you, the listeners and the viewers. What would you like us to research and discuss next?
Because if I need to stock up on alcohol, I need to know now.
Let us know in the comment section below of whatever platform you're viewing or listening on, which is basically YouTube and Spotify, because they took away Google Podcast.
Did they?
Yeah, they deleted that platform that no longer exists.
You can see how much I know about that.
And we're not on Apple Podcasts or whatever. People ask me that. No,
Nobody's
we're not
going to
on...
know because they can't listen to it on Apple Podcasts.
Yeah, I guess. If you're already
Which
listening.
I guess is a superior platform. Not.
Apparently so. I don't know.
Obviously superior. Oh, good Lord.
Well,
all right, last call. Anybody?
Call? Who's got what?
I'm coming up to the end of the school year. It is the end of the school year. Last Monday, week from before this debuts, is National Band Director Day. So thank your band director, because I know lots of you had one.
That's an actual day.
There's like National Croissant Day. There's National Band Director Day.
Do I get paid for National Band Director Day?
No, I don't get paid for National Band Director Day.
What the heck? Come on, Joe.
Right? I mean, at least buy me a drink. But anyway, it's the end of the year. Teachers are fried. So here's the deal. Look, you want like as teacher appreciation last week, we don't want coffee mugs. And we definitely don't want pizza.
I've heard this before. What do you want?
What do we want? We want liquor gift cards. That's what we want.
When do you want it?
I'm speaking for every teacher that I know. I'm speaking for Casey's wife, because I know she needs a good bottle of wine.
Yeah.
And if she doesn't, Casey definitely does, because he's married to a teacher. So if it's not for the teacher, at least for their spouses, a nice bottle of wine or a good bottle of bourbon. Either would work.
Yeah. Or a gift card to your favorite liquor store.
No, cash. Cash is fine.
Casey, what do you got?
Well, I mean, as a watered down justification for my ostriching, I managed to pile on almost all the worst possible things in one sitting. So I like moving, remodeling a house. I've decided that my new calling is to become a pilot, so I've started the process of that. So I've got to jump through
Really?
several flaming hoops. So just to clarify, a helicopter pilot with the Army, so I'm not ditching my day job for this, but I've got
Oh,
several medical hoops to jump through to qualify, and
so you're not going to fly for Frontier Airlines, is what you're saying?
hell no.
But you could marry Jeff Bezos.
Yeah,
What?
I don't know what that has to do with
I
that.
have no idea either.
Oh, she was a helicopter pilot in L.A. She did traffic.
She meaning his wife?
Yeah, the one he's marrying right now.
No, the current one.
No, the
Oh,
the future one. I believe they haven't married yet. They're engaged.
okay, the future ex-wife.
Yes, to be
Gotcha.
replaced with KC.
But,
Okay.
but yeah, so that's what's going on. Hopefully, I'll know by the end of next month whether or not I qualify.
So
But then
what's a qualification require? A medical, obviously, but what else?
um, well, there's an academic exam called the SIFT. I don't know what that stands for. Um, but
SIFT or CIFT?
I don't know.
Does it make a
Don't ask
difference,
me
Joe? Do you know what that
questions.
means?
No, I don't know what it means, but it'll help me guess.
Oh, okay.
SHIFT, I think. No.
Ooh.
SHIT?
Yeah, honestly, I don't even know. All right. That shows exactly how much thought I put into this. So the genesis of I should become a pilot is, man, engineering really sucks if you don't have an engineer degree. I should, because I have to go to captain's career course, and then I'm gonna have to sit through a whole bunch of other structural engineering BS again. So I'm like, all right, you get one silver bullet as an officer. You can change your career once, and that's when you become a captain. So I'm getting close to that. So I'm like, I'm
I
gonna shoot my shot. I'm gonna try to see if I can become a pilot.
I think the genesis of this idea came from you being strapped to the wings of a vintage biplane at an air show that your wife took you to.
Actually, yeah, that would be yes. That was fun as shit. Yeah. So, but yeah, so I got to go through a whole bunch of medical stuff, and if I'd done this when I was like 18 or so, I'd be better off. But I've sustained some, I don't know, not even damage, just regular wear and tear of being a human. Oh, not to air my medical dirty laundry, but apparently back when I did my commissioning physical, they tested my lungs and they're like, "Wow, you look like you're a heavy smoker." Now they didn't say this to me at the time because this is news to me. So they're reviewing my file for the aviation pack and they're like, "Hey, we need to run you through a pulmonary function test because we think you smoke heavily," which I don't. So yeah,
Does
yeah, that's
anybody in your family smoke?
no.
Because I met your parents and they don't come across as heavy smokers to me.
So what I think possibly, if there's any credence to this, because I even after this alleged finding, I ran a 12-minute and 45-second 2 mile. So my lungs can't be doing that bad. I do wonder though if because it was 2021 when they supposedly found it, maybe COVID had an effect and it came through.
Oh,
Hmm.
Yeah.
interesting. I wonder if it'd be different now.
Well, so that's next Friday. I've got another exam to test my lung function, and as long as that goes through, then I'm gonna say, not to be overly cocky, but I'd say I have like a 90% chance of getting the slot I want.
If it doesn't go through, you should start smoking.
Yeah, yeah. Uh,
Give them something to talk about. Oh
but
gosh. On
yeah, so
that note,
that's what's going on.
we have to do a pulmonary function test yearly at work
Do you
Hmm.
because
really? No shit.
because yeah, certain people within our department have to wear respirators. Therefore, they make it a standard across the board. So every year, you got to go in do a pulmonary test. It's a
Hmm.
pain in the ass. It does not apply to me and what I do in any sort of way, but I still have to do it anyways.
So
No
what do you have to
kidding.
do?
Inclusion, you know.
I just play a small tuba on a regular basis. That seems to help my pulmonary function.
Yeah.
So
They have it's almost like a breathalyzer type of thing that's connected to a computer, and you have to blow into it, and it measures the amount of air that comes out of your lungs over a certain period of time, and
Hmm.
you basically feel like you're going to pass out, and they keep telling you, keep going, keep going, keep going. And you're like, until you're
Jeez.
about to fall on the floor.
So how do I
And
study for this exam?
you have to do that 3 times in a row consistently, or they make you keep doing it again.
What?
Yeah,
Oh
it's a
Um,
pain in the ass.
you can study for it by sucking on your exhaust pipe of your car,
Okay.
or you can hook your vacuum cleaner up and you can deep throat that. Either works.
Or
Good
or
Lord.
should I burn down a cigarette prior to open up my lungs? That's how
That's
that
another
works, right?
option. That's another option. See,
Well, all right. So
look at that. See, now this is more
on the
educational.
next episode of cheating your pulmonary function test.
Yeah. Oh, goodness.
And this is
Oh.
why KC remains anonymous.
Yeah.
Uh, and on that note,
Hey, Mike, how do we get in touch?
Joe, you, Casey, and myself, we make up the Spring Bar Podcast. You can find us on Instagram at the Spring Bar Podcast. Email us, the Spring Bar Podcast at gmail.com. On a personal level, I am 120 clicks, all spelled out, one long word, 120 clicks. Joe.
I am Emil at gmail. No, I'm Watch Taylor Youth, all one word. EUPH, all one word. KC.
I am time.hack1636. I almost forgot what my Instagram was because I haven't used it.
It's been a minute, dude. It's been a minute. You've been AWOL, but you're busy and building life and shit.
Stuff that we've already done, really don't care about anymore.
Well, yeah, except he's got a house and you and I both have apartments, so
This is true. But we both have children that are pretty much self-sustaining at this point.
this is also true.
Yeah.
So let me know if you need a cat. I'll send you one second day.
I do not need any freaking more cats.
Oh, gosh. Well, you can't
Six.
have more than what Joe's got right now.
Second day air. I got you. I'll just I'll poke some holes in that bag. It'll be that self-sealing envelope one, the bubble wrap one. I'll spring for the extra. It'll be fun.
Oh, goodness. All right, gentlemen. Well, on that note, until next time that we dispense useless information that nobody ever
Useless.
asked for.
Cheers.
Cheers.